Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 174, Mad Dog. With Lei Jingzhi having opened up the Dun province armory, no matter how strongly did Yan He rebuild this mansion to be, it could not stand up to a single blow in the face of military weapons built specifically for sieges. Those arrows simply could not penetrate through the shield of the head cart, and the door latch broke from the impact of the crash. Before the crossbow arrows could be reloaded, the Bianchi cavalry entered. Fei Sheng stepped forward in a move to support Shen Zequan and said in an urgent voice, "Master, let's evacuate from the back and find a way to leave the city under the cover of the night. Lei Jingzhi wants to round up Harigo and his people in one fell swoop." Shen Zequan stood against the wind. He meticulously prepared for this, as evident in his use of a massive force to besiege the city. He won't leave any openings. It's already too late to be thinking of leaving the city now. Fei Sheng watched as the compound was surrounded. He knew escape was impossible tonight. But as he had made it clear before, he had to risk his life to ensure that Shen Zequan remained safe and sound, so he clenched his blade and stood motionless at the side like a nail fixed in place beside Shen Zequan. The Jin Yue behind him all looked as if they were about to come face to face with a formidable foe. For a moment, the atmosphere was particularly somber. The crescent moon at present looked like a thread concealed away among the dark clouds. Heavy fog hung overhead in the sky, bearing down on them. There was already no stopping the destructive force in motion. Shen Zequan was still leaning against the railing, letting his gaze roam to take in the lights in Dun province. This was the first time he got a clear look at Dun province. Fei Sheng stood in silence. Together with the Jin Yue, he watched Shen Zequan attentively amidst the deafening sound of the melee below. Strangely enough, they were no longer nervous, even at such a critical juncture of life and death. Fei Sheng had only wanted to follow under Xiao Qiye's command in the past because Xiao Qiye had the unprecedented spirit of a groundbreaking pioneer. On the day they rebelled and fled from Chu capital, Fei Sheng had done so willingly and wholeheartedly. But Xiao Qiye refused to accept him, so he could only step back to work under Shen Zequan instead. Shen Zequan wasn't likable. His appearance made him a controversial figure who was the subject of condemnation in Chu capital. Shen Wei was a threshold. Many people would rather stand on the outside to scrutinize him, as if the verdict of his life and death all lay in those sprays of spittle. When he left the Temple of Penitence, everyone treated him as a noble clan blade that had replaced Shen Wei, an imperial dog under the Empress Dowager's command. However, the subsequent happenings deviated far from everyone's expectations. In that struggle for power, he quietly and steadily rose his way to the top. By the time everyone realized it, he was already standing in the heart of the political storm. He did not seem to possess that imposing air of zest and vigor, and yet his thin and frail back was the protective barrier in all the times he stood in front. Even if the storm raged and left a trail of destruction in its wake, it would be a rainless picture of calm and silence behind him for as long as he remained standing. Fei Sheng closed his eyes to clear his mind of distracting thoughts. His heart felt calm and at ease at present. This was a kind of tranquility that had no need for words of encouragement. He had abandoned Ji Lei and forsaken Han Cheng. Whoever he followed had always been based on the opportunity availed to him at that time. All along, he had never been able to understand the trust Chen Yang and Gu Jin had in Xiao Qiye, but at this very moment, as he stood in the wind and opened his eyes once again, he possessed that trust. Everyone in this world wants to be Xiao Qiye. But no one can ever be another Shen Lanzhou. Horses' hooves broke through the doors beneath them, while dark clouds rolled overhead. Fei Sheng, who had been plotting to seek personal gains by currying favors all his life, grabbed his blade with one hand and kicked over the wooden chair beside him to send it crashing into the Bianchi cavalry at the stairway. He ripped his outer robe open and secured the blade in his palm, then lifted the wine on the table and said to the various Jin Yue, "Even if heaven and earth were to collapse today, we must ensure Master remains safe and unharmed." Here we are, chatting and drinking with a smile even as we are encircled by powerful troops. This is a sight and honor we have never had while serving the emperor. Fei Sheng raised his head back and gulped down the wine, letting it trickle down and soak through the front of his clothes. He smashed the bowl, then wiped his mouth and burst into wild laughter. This battle is going to make legends out of us men. Brothers, time to make a name for ourselves. Xiaochun blades all left their sheaths in unison, and booming laughter reverberated through the clouds. Blood splattered all over the stairway as more than a dozen Jinyue climbed over the railings and brandished their blades to cut down the Biancha cavalry who were swarming towards them with sweeping force. Heads rolled all over the narrow and cramped stairs. With every rise of his hand and fall of his blade, Fei Sheng decisively and efficiently hacked away at his opponents' necks without the slightest hesitation. Lei Jingzhi did not dare to set the building on fire. He wanted to catch Yan Hiru alive, so he could only force his way up the stairs in an attack. The Jinyue were all at the top of their game that night. Those scorpions, who were unshakable when they turned out in full force, were unable to swing their hammers freely after stepping onto the stairway, and this subsequently greatly reduced the strain on the Jinyue. Unable to ascend the stairs, Lei Jingzhi sought out another way. Fuxian Peak towered over the double-eaved roofs like a crane standing head and shoulders among a flock of chickens, and so they used the cloud ladder. Yan Hiru watched as the Biancha cavalry swarmed up towards them in great number. Fuxian Peak seemed to be a relic pillar standing alone between heaven and earth. He retreated to Shenzequan's side, shivering from the wind. Since you dared to enter the tiger's den, then you must have prepared for it. Shenzequan did not answer. Yan Hiru was about to say something further when a hand suddenly grasped the railing beside him, and a Biancha cavalryman climbed his way up. Without even thinking, Yan Hiru raised his golden abacus and slammed it down on the Biancha cavalryman, knocking the latter out. But there were still several men following close behind the other man, and they made a sudden grab to hold up Yan Hiru's abacus in place before flipping their way up. Yan Hiru lived by the maxim that, as valuable as the abacus may be, life is worth even more, so he promptly let go of his hand, abandoning the abacus. He took several steps back but tripped over the small table and toppled over to the ground. That cavalryman was a tall, strapping man, and he looked just like a mountain when he stood before Yan Hiru. On seeing him lift his blade, Yan Hiru hastened to yell, "Your lordship, save me. My dear Gurgr. The price is always negotiable." A Saker falcon swooped past, and before the cavalryman could lift his blade, a figure suddenly leaped up from behind. Haragu came pouncing from the air, taking out the cavalryman in one slash. After he landed, he rolled on the ground and grabbed hold of Yan Hiru. Yan Hiru lifted his head, intending to gripe at Shenzequan for being such an unrighteous one. But before he could open his mouth, he saw a black shadow spring over the railing to land heavily on top of it. Haragu pressed Yan Hiru's head down and bent over backward to dodge the iron hammer sweeping towards them. The man's bare upper body was just as muscularly sculpted as Jida, whom they had encountered a few days prior. The iron hammer swooshed past in mid-air, causing a break in the flow of the wind. When he stood up, Yan Hiru had to raise his head to look at him. The scorpion tattoo took up his entire back. He rolled his shoulders as a warm-up, then proceeded to jump down the railing. Haragu pushed Yan Hiru aside and fished out a pike dagger from the back of his waist. The two of them did not even bother with greetings as they immediately traded a flurry of blows with one another. There was nowhere for Yan Hiru to hide in this chaos. He was used to a life of lavish luxury, and the martial arts he used to learn were merely all show but no substance. In any case, he had already forgotten all of it. Afraid of being pecked by the Saker falcons hovering overhead, Yan Hiru crouched low and scrambled with both hands on the ground through any openings he could find amidst the mayhem. He managed with great difficulty to make his way to the side, only to see a person squatting on the railing. Yan Hiru lifted his gaze, and his eyes promptly curved into crescents as he revealed a smile and called out warmly, "Eldest nephew." Lei Jing sneered and reached his arm out to grab him. Disregarding his dignity and image, Yan Hiru rolled on the ground to one side like a slippery loach. He reached for the railing with the intention to climb up when he felt a grip on his collar. Thinking it to be Lei Jing, he hurriedly turned his head to plead, "Lei Gerger." But it turned out to be Shen Zequin. Shen Zequin exerted force with his left hand and yanked Yan Hiru off the railing before tossing him in front of him. Before Yan Hiru had his chance to roll, Shen Zequin pressed his foot against the back of his waist to make him kneel. Yan Hiru was stuck between a rock and a hard place, with a wolf before him and a tiger behind him. He wanted to cry as he kneeled in the middle, but no tears came, so he put his palms together and said as though he was paying religious homage, "I was merely jesting around with my dear Gergers. Put the loss this time on my account. Let's not brandish our weapons anymore. Say, the three of us should join forces and cooperate, then we'd be invincible in the world, agree?" Lei Jing motioned for Yan Hiru to shut up. He leaped off the railing and stared at Shen Zequin as he moved over with unhurried steps. After a while, he said, "How have you been since we parted, Vice Commander?" Without even waiting for Shen Zequin to answer, he continued after coming to a stop. "Guess I should call you Prefectural Lord now." Everyone was locked in battle near and far, and the sounds of tables and chairs being smashed resounded clearly in their ears. Thick gloomy clouds hung over their heads as both of them stood in the strong wind facing each other in a confrontation with Yan Hiru between them. The raging wind in the distance surged and receded amidst the backdrop of tens of thousands of lights in Dun Province. Lei Jing raised his hand to slap his nape and said in a mocking tone, "I sure have excellent luck tonight. To think I could catch such a big fish from the sewer. What? There's no Xiaoqi yet to escort and protect you this time." Shen Zequin raised a finger to remove the cloak on his shoulder and inclined his head to say with a smile, "My husband is up to his neck in military affairs. It's inappropriate for him to go on a long journey these days. We can discuss it ourselves if there are any matters of concern." Lei Jing's eyes gradually darkened to conceal a sly glint within. "Did you come to Dun Province? Oh, wrong. Did you return to Dun Province to hold a memorial service for Shen Wei?" "I'm here on young Master Yan's invitation," Shen Zequin said without batting an eyelid, "to discuss a plan to kill you." Yan Hiru's face blanched. He wanted to explain and defend himself when he met Lei Jing's gaze, but upon feeling the chill on his nape, he did not dare to speak up. Shen Zequin is truly a ruthless one, he thought to himself. With just one sentence, the latter had severed his route of retreat. Whether or not he survived this night, Lei Jing would no longer believe him. No wonder I could sense that the person who saved Yan Hiru back in the restaurant was no ordinary talent. The expression in Lei Jing's gaze was malevolent. I initially meant to be magnanimous and not lower myself to the level of a child. But I never expected him to be so malicious to invite you over to work out a scheme to kill me. He's a child at heart. Shen Zequin shifted his foot away from Yan Hiru. He doesn't know when to stop pushing it and inevitably ends up angering you. It's rather embarrassing. You have been colluding in secret for a long time. As expected, Lei Jing fell for the trap and contemplated it. No wonder I couldn't find the supply wagons this time. But you one-upped him tonight, Shen Zequin said as if he conceded defeat. His eyes followed Lei Jing. I can switch allegiances, seeing how it's a matter of life and death now. Lei Jing feared Shen Zequin. He knew Shen Zequin was the most proficient in this kind of offensive and defensive warfare. The moment he fell for Shen Zequin's words, he would be irrevocably doomed. So Lei Jing lowered his arms and sneered, "Xiaoqi, you ruined my base on Mount Luo. This is a score that can't be forgotten. If you kill Yan Hiru tonight, you will completely sever all your contacts and dealings with He Province. But occupying both the prefectures of Dun Province and Duan Province means that you have to sustain the grains and military expenses alone in the future." Shen Zequin attempted to coax him. "Tse Province's granaries are currently in abundance of grains. I can give you a helping hand." Lei Jingzhi threw his head back and roared with laughter. Suddenly, he spoke, "Since you have been colluding with Yan Hira for a long time, then you must have seen Haraguo. My guess is that you came to Tse province this time to take in these traitors by capitalizing on Bai Cha's name and reputation, right? Looks like the game is as good as lost for me tonight. I can't hide it from you." Shen Zequan sighed with a pang of regret. "That's right. I came here this time for precisely this matter. Lei Jingzhi, we are all sons of Geedle. When it really comes down to it, we are all fellow brothers too. So why draw our swords on each other? As long as you can hack off Xiao Qiye's head, we can be brothers." Lei Jingzhi still bore a grudge against Xiao Qiye. He said in a frosty tone, "You are deceiving me with such words only because you saw how heavily besieged the city is now and you know that you can't escape death. Are you really going to kill me? Setting an enemy free is like letting a tiger return to its mountain. It will set the stage for future calamities." Lei Jingzhi said, "You took 2 months to devour Tse province and Sha province and take Zhougui and Luomu under your command. I was initially worried you would become the dominant power in Zongbo in the future the longer you live, and by then, it would be hard to remove you. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to my doorstep. No matter how you try to convince me with your glib tongue and honeyed words, my killing you is a foregone conclusion." The wind flooded into Shen Zequan's sleeves, sending it billowing and revealing his wrist bone. The bandage on his right hand was visible as he gripped the blue handkerchief between his fingers. He covered his mouth and coughed as though he could not bear the cold on this tower. After the coughing stopped, he said, "Can't you give me a way out on account of Bai Cha's name?" As soon as the words left his mouth, it clicked in Lei Jingzhi's mind, and he promptly bellowed, "You deceived me. You don't know the specifics of the scorpions at all." With that, his fist went sailing through the wind right towards Shen Zequan's face. Shen Zequan had long been on his guard, and he slid aside to dodge the punch. On missing his target, Lei Jingzhi did not retract his fist but made use of the momentum to grab Shen Zequan by the arm. White robe fluttered gently in the wind as Shen Zequan moved away with elegant grace, causing Lei Jingzhi to turn up empty-handed once again. Lei Jingzhi squatted next and swept his leg out in a circle, and Shen Zequan sprang back against that wave of strong wind to land on the railing. The sound of killing beneath them boiled over like a seething cauldron. Lei Jingzhi was determined to send Shen Zequan to his death tonight. On seeing Shen Zequan standing perilously on the edge, he grabbed his hammer and sent it swinging into the wind with the intent to force Shen Zequan off the tower. Shen Zequan balanced himself steadily on the railing. The strong wind roared behind him, sending his sleeves billowing like a swan goose by the railing. His right hand remained still. He was already in a disadvantaged position. Deciding that a psychological offensive was the best tactic, Lei Jingzhi said in between movements, "Well, then. Shen Zequan, don't you want to know Bai Cha's relationship to the scorpions? I will tell you tonight." He soared into the air and somersaulted onto the railing, where he followed close in Shen Zequan's footsteps and attempted to force Shen Zequan into the corner. Bai Cha was a whore in a brothel in Duan province who worked specifically for the Liaoying tribe. She was a dog amuer planted beside Shen Wei. She was a needle Biancha hid in Zongbo. Shen Zequan seemed to lose his balance as he teetered at the edge for a bit. His sleeves suddenly danced backward. Fei Shen, who was deep among the horde of people, could not help but panic when he saw the sight in his peripheral vision. "Master!" However, in the next moment, Shen Zequan braced himself against the wind and swung back to stabilize himself. Upon seeing this, Lei Jingzhi struck out at him suddenly, forcing Shen Zequan to retreat in order to evade the blow again. He continued speaking, "Don't you think you're really a wretched one? Being Shen Wei's son caused you so much physical and mental suffering. I shall pull you out of this abyss of misery. Shen Zequan, you're a bastard child of Biancha." Bai Cha was a promiscuous woman of loose morals. Lei Jingzhi felt the impact at the side of his neck, and this blow nearly made him bite off his tongue. He hurriedly took a few steps back and held himself steady at this high altitude, then turned his head to the side and spat out the blood from the blow Shenzequan had dealt him with. Shenzequan had his left hand lifted in a martial arts stance, his eyes freezing over with frostiness. His complexion looked particularly pale under this faint veil of moonlight, as if he was a piece of cold, bloodless jade. Slowly, he warned, "Watch your tongue." Lei Jingzhi threw his hammer aside and gradually put some distance between them. He said in a low voice, "Every word I say is the truth." He continued with a pitying gaze, "You're really the world's most pitiful child. Do you know how Bai Cha died?" Shen Wei found out her real identity, then strangled her to death with his very own hands. You were born of abhorrence. Why did Shen Wei raise you? Did you think you were regaining lost grounds when you crawled your way out of the Hashi sinkhole and returned to Zongbo after experiencing all that hatred and sorrows? He let out a dreary laugh and said cruelly, "You made it all out to be so incredibly touching, but you didn't expect it, did you? No one will accept you for how you are. If Li Bei were to find out who Bai Cha is, Xiao Qi's blade would turn on you." A jolt suddenly vibrated through the railing. At the same instant Shenzequan sprang, Lei Jingzhi crossed his arms before him to block the blow. The kick nearly made him lean over backward. With both of them locked in fierce combat, Yan Hiru did not dare to remain close by and scrambled his way to the other end. Lei Jingzhi nearly could not hold his own against the blows, and as he retreated to evade the blows, he scraped against the wooden frame for vines, knocking it over along with the glazed lamps nearby. Flames pounced onto the woolen carpet, setting it ablaze in the blink of an eye. Lei Jingzhi was sure that Shenzequan had already lost his measure of control. As both of them duke it out on the railing, the flames behind them intensified. Fei Shen was all bathed in blood from the killing. He flipped out of the stairway and shouted, "Master, it's on fire. It's inadvisable to remain here for long." Lei Jingzhi felt a gush of wind at his back, and he spared whatever remaining strength he had to dodge the Jinyi Wei. "Dun Province is my territory tonight. You have no way out of here alive even if you fight to the death." In the midst of his proclamation, Lei Jingzhi saw White Sleeves rushing right towards him with a move so sudden it caught him off guard and caused him to stumble. Shenzequan grabbed Lei Jingzhi by his collar, and in this heart-stopping moment, Lei Jingzhi got a clear look at Shenzequan's face. Even before Fei Shen could lend a hand, the sound of fabric tearing rang out, and in a flash, a feather-like white figure plunged down together with Lei Jingzhi. Fei Shen was seized with terror as he made a sudden grab for him with a lightning move of his hand, but his hand merely brushed past the corner of Lei Jingzhi's clothes. Panic-stricken, he cried out in a trembling voice, "Master!" The instant Lei Jingzhi plummeted down, he came to the conclusion that Shenzequan was gambling on his life with him. During the drop, he swiftly stretched out his right hand. His back slammed into the upturned eaves on Fuxian Peak. At the same time the corner broke off from the impact, he grabbed hold of the eaves and hung on, his feet swinging in the empty air. The blazing flames looked as though they were engulfing the world, and in spite of himself, Lei Jingzhi broke out in a cold sweat. Lei Jingzhi did not dare to be negligent. His right hand was burning with pain as he attempted to climb up the damaged eaves onto the protruding tiles. But Shenzequan had already climbed up from the other end. He stepped down on Lei Jingzhi's raised hand, and several tiles tumbled off all at once and smashed into smithereens below. Shaken, Lei Jingzhi spat out the blood in his mouth in the wind. "Fuck." Shenzequan looked down at Lei Jingzhi, his badly torn sleeves revealing his right hand while towering flames blazed behind him. He removed the bandage and threw away the steel needle that had been secured with it, then clenched his 5 pale fingers into a fist to test his strength. Lei Jingzhi's fingers were hurting from being stepped on. He had pulled the muscles on his arm earlier, and right now, he was hanging on for dear life with all his might, his feet stepping in empty air as he forced himself to cling onto the damaged eaves. He saw that steel needle fall before his very eyes. "Even if you kill me, you won't survive this." Lei Jingzhi looked up and squeezed out a laugh. You're too pitiful. You've been molded into a monster. After tonight, Zongbo will be your nightmare. You will toss and turn night after night, and you will be on tenterhooks day after day. The land under your feet. Shen Zequin squatted down. The light of the flames made a clean sweep of his gloominess and pallor, replacing it with an exotic allure and a bloodthirsty ruthlessness. He let out a quiet laugh. How very naive of you. Lei Jingzhi's throat bobbed. He did not understand why a strained gasp escaped as Shen Zequin's right hand clutched his throat tightly. Never had he imagined that the seemingly frail and sickly Shen Zequin would have such great strength. Shen Zequin tightened his grip, using Lei Jingzhi's momentum in climbing up to haul him up some. As he watched Lei Jingzhi's face flush red, he said in a soft voice, "You are really a hilarious one, Lei Jingzhi. Why would you think that Bai Cha is enough to sway me?" Unable to catch his breath, Lei Jingzhi's eyes darted all over as fear engulfed him whole. Shen Zequin scrutinized him and said kindly, "I came to Dun province for the specific purpose of capturing you." Lei Jingzhi's breathing hitched in his throat. "You did me a great favor." Shen Zequin turned his eyes to look at Dun province. "I want to annex both the prefectures of Dun province and Duan province, but I didn't dare to make a move because of Qi Zuyan. All I could do was to make use of King Yi of Fan province as a cover. You could have lived a little longer. If you hadn't brought the Biancha people over this time, I might have had to wait a year or two, or even longer, to find an opportunity, but you brought the Biancha cavalry." The sparks crackled and spluttered. "Now I have enough reason to deploy troops to Dun province." Shen Zequin shifted his gaze back to Lei Jingzhi's face. "Thanks to you for chatting with me for this long that I could buy enough time for the Tse province garrison troops." Lei Jingzhi could not believe it. How could Shen Zequin have plotted his moves to such an extent and anticipated every step Lei Jingzhi himself would take? He raised his head. The world before him was already a blur. With some difficulty, he gasped, U.S. Scorpion. "Regardless of who my parents are," Shen Zequin turned his head to the side and whispered into his ear, "I am Shen Zequin. Whether your word is the truth or a lie is of no significance to me at all. I am my own nightmare." The land under his feet? Zongbo could not tie down Shen Zequin at all. He was not as attached to his native land as Xiao Qiye was. On the day he fell into the Hashi sinkhole, he became a man without a hometown. Ever since then, he severed all attachment he held towards the land. He could never gallop in the grasslands, his wings were born out of the darkness of the night. If Xiao Qiye was Hanjian mountains, then Shen Zequin was the frigid wind coursing through the territories of Zongbo. Shen Wei. Bai Cha. He did not care for them at all. The two fingers on his right hand made a noise of protest, but Shen Zequin could no longer feel the pain. He gripped Lei Jingzhi's throat just like how he had choked Ji Lei a year ago. This made it clear to all that he was no longer trapped under the control of others. Perhaps Lei Jingzhi was right. All these years of suffering and hatred had molded him into a monster. When Qi Huilian died as well in that heavy downpour, Shen Zequin completely forsook all of those obsolete conventions. He would no longer be anyone's prisoner. He loved Xiao Qiye, and he still had Ji Gang. He could not imagine a day when Xiao Qiye and Ji Gang would become a thing of the past, transformed into pain he had no remedy for. He had enough of enduring it in silence, he was fed up of being chained. He wanted to tear apart not just this world, but also all the shackles imposed on him in the past. Lei Jingzhi could hardly hang on anymore. He was finally able to raise his hands to grab Shen Zequin's arm, and it was at this moment he remembered the rumors in Chu capital. Mad, Lei Jingzhi squeezed the words out. The angry flames that stretched like a fiery dragon roared among the double-eaved roofs and pavilion, and the building let loose a series of dangerous-sounding noises amidst the burning. Broken wood went smashing with a thunderous crash, and the tiles under their feet followed suit and slid off. Fuxian Peak, which Yan Hiru had spent huge amount to construct, was in the process of collapsing. The damaged eaves cracked apart again, as if it could not bear the weight of two people. It was here that Shenzequan stood, yet he remembered the abyss in his dream. He had always stood at the brink of the abyss without taking that one step forward, because he did not know what kind of change that one step would usher in. But then, he heard the sound of horses' hooves. That was the wind that came from Libé. Shenzequan released his hand. At that very instant the eaves collapsed. Shenzequan strode a step out. His white robe went fluttering in the wind as he plunged down like a bird with its wings folded. The wind swept past his ears. He felt as if he had experienced a dream. Still, stagnant waters lay at the bottom of the abyss, and it was here Shenzequan fell and stirred up waves of ripples. But the breathing in his ear was so intense. A vibrant life force brimming with vitality dispelled the darkness as strong arms held Shenzequan tight. In that split second, the lifeless waters seemed to have brushed off its extraneous dust to transform into Xiao Qiye's chest. Xiao Qiye had caught a hold of him. End chapter. Note: Cloud ladder is a hinged ladder used for siege attack. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 175, Kitten. Fuxian Peak was in the midst of collapsing, and Xiao Qiye's soul was about to take leave of his body at the exact moment he looked up. He grabbed onto the eaves with an arm and stepped on somebody's head to clamber up the double eaves roof, then ran for what his life was worth. He caught Shenzequan in his arms as he leaped, and the impact careened him off course. He immediately covered Shenzequan with his arms as his back struck heavily against the ridge of the roof, causing the tiles to topple off. Chen Yang reined in his horse and brandished his whip to point towards the eaves as he shouted urgently, "Lao Hu, catch them!" Xiao Qiye panted heavily as his sore arms braced his body. Sweat trickled along his neck. As the falling objects went crashing down, he haphazardly brushed aside the hair on Shenzequan's cheek with his trembling fingers and confirmed that Shenzequan was still gasping for breath. He let loose a vague curse and held Shenzequan so tightly with such force that Shenzequan coughed intermittently amidst the smoke and dust. Tantai, who had already chased all the way to the front of the building. He released Lang Tao Shuijin's reins and shouted, "Master!" Xiao Qiye stepped on the tiles and leaped down. Gu Jin wanted to give him a helping hand, but Xiao Qiye raised his arm to stop him as he was unwilling to hand Shenzequan over to anyone else. As he mounted his horse, Xiao Qiye took the cloak from Chen Yang and covered Shenzequan with it. The contours of Xiao Qiye's side profile were cold and hard. He patted Tantaihu on the back with his freed hand, making Tantaihu stick out his chest, then said in a cold voice, "This place was your elder brother's battlefield." Tantaihu wiped away the blood on his cheek in silence. With eyes grave and solemn, Xiao Qiye said, "Tantaihu, time to go home." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Once again, the Prince of Jiangxing's manor was burned and razed to the ground. Flames accompanied the sound of killing as the fire blazed until dawn. The dark red blood on the downtown streets of Dun province had converged into a trickling stream. Meanwhile, the commoners all hid themselves at home, not daring to even sneak a peek. At the third quarter of the hour of Chen, the Tse province garrison troops and imperial army started to clean up the battlefield. They dragged the corpses to an open, flat area to be disposed of at a later time. Tantaihu was presently having his meal. He had just returned from the battlefield, and without even washing his face, he squatted with the guards on the veranda to gobble down his food. Chen Yang called for the chef in the Yan clan's pleasure house to prepare meals for the soldiers of the garrison troops and imperial army, who were all famished after having marched through the night and fighting until the break of day. Street fights are still the most thrilling. Tantaihu wiped his mouth. Field operations are thrilling too, but not nearly as exciting. Master has the foresight, Gu Jin bit down on a steamed bun before continuing, not to get the imperial army to put on armor. Otherwise, we would have suffered from those hammers last night. The curtains of the main hall remained down all the time they rested up here. Chen Yang was a little worried. Clutching at the register of names, he questioned Ding Tao, "Why did you let young master go up that tower? You didn't even go with him." Ding Tao hung his head down, not daring to say a word. Fei Sheng and several others who had been injured had hastily bandaged their wounds, and their upper garments were uncovered as they all kneeled in the courtyard and waited to be reprimanded. However, the Jin Yi put up a beautiful defense last night. They had not allowed Lei Jingzhi to force his way up from the stairs. 2 of their own had died. As Fei Sheng had shouted, they had made a name for themselves with this one battle. No one could belittle them in the future. They had real capabilities to speak of, and they could hold their heads high even when they stood before the guards from Libei, for they were no less inferior. Kong Ling stood in the hall and let his sleeves fall as he waited deferentially at the side. He knew Xiao Qiye was feeding Shenzhequan medicine when he heard the clinks of the porcelain bowl in the inner chamber. After a while, the maidservant came out with the bowl and curtsied to Kong Ling before leaving the room. Xiao Qiye lifted the curtain and stepped out. He wiped his hands with a handkerchief and said to Kong Ling, "It's nothing serious, he hurt his hand. Last time, it was his left hand, and now it's his right hand. In any case, he's taking turns to injure them. Sooner or later, he's going to be the death of me." Kong Ling remained calm and unruffled as he lowered his head and listened. He knew the words were not meant for him. The inner chamber was not soundproof, and the way Xiao Qiye mentioned it so casually made the man lying within turn over soundlessly. Xiao Qiye set the handkerchief to one side, then made way and gestured for Kong Ling to enter. Once Kong Ling lifted the curtains and went in, he strode out of the door to stand under the eaves and whistled to the guards. "Let Gu Jin dispose of the corpses. Settle it by tonight at the latest. Get whatever cleansing agents needed like vinegar and water from the Yan clan." Xiao Qiye cast a glance at the weather. "While it's not that hot in autumn, I noticed last night that the public ditches in Dun province are all clogged as well. It's all too easy for an epidemic to start if they aren't unclogged. Keep an eye on it." Dun province had no yamen to manage its affairs, and its network of public ditches was all in a mess. There were plenty of people who built their houses over the ditches, and the blockage was far worse than it had been in Chu capital. It was the reason for the blood pooling into puddles this morning instead of flowing freely like a river. Autumn was not as hot as summer, but it was too dry. The fire had raged for so long last night partially because the houses in the residential district were all clustered together, eaves to eaves. As he stood at the doorway and gave his instructions, Shenzhequan was also discussing affairs with Kong Ling in the inner chamber. Kong Ling sat on the small chair by the side of the bed and said, "Once we received your lordship's letter in Tse province, we immediately began to check the garrison troops. Yuan Zhou wanted the garrison troops to leave the city right at once and head east to wait for the imperial army at the southern border of the Bianbo camp. He said if the imperial army came, they could head south as one. If not, they should remain there and wait." He smiled when he spoke to this point. "I initially objected to it, because your lordship instructed us in the letter not to act arbitrarily without orders. It's a good thing Yuan Zhou insisted." Shenzhequan leaned partially against the pillow and read the letter Kong Ling brought along. Yuan Zhou understood the message behind that letter. Shenzhequan was unable to write a letter then, so he had to orally dictate many points for inclusion in the letter. At that time, there were still captured bandits around the horse carriage, and many among them were former subordinates of Lu'er. Moreover, Lu'er was Lei Jingzhi's messenger. Shenzhequan could not trust all these people, so when he issued his command to Tse province, he said do not act arbitrarily without orders. But then, he followed up right after with the order to head for Dun province. He was playing with words here, and Yao Wen, you got the hint right at once. Your lordship is circumspect and far-sighted. A few days back when we were discussing Dun province, we still thought we would only be able to come after spring next year. Who would have expected your lordship to have already worked out the appropriate strategy?" Kong Ling said. It was a coincidence this time. Shenzhequan was clear-headed. When I seized those supply wagons, I only knew that there were 400 scorpions still in Dun province. I gave Tse province a hint to deploy troops initially because I wanted to use this reason to let the garrison troops probe into just how deep the waters in Dun province run. It would have been enough to capture Lei Jing alive. But who knew, he even brought along more than 10,000 cavalrymen and delivered them right into my hands. During their discussion back in Tse province, they had agreed to first keep King Yi's small imperial court in Fan province under control before attempting to obtain Dun province. This was because King Yi could obstruct Qizuyan of Qidong on Shenzhequan's behalf. Shenzhequan now had the two prefectures of Tse province and Cha province in his hands, and he relied on the trade route to rise to power. In Zongbo, he could only be considered the master of a small plot of land. The various prefectures of Dun province, Duan province, Fan province, and Deng province to the east all had their own masters. If Shenzhequan wanted to remove them from the equation, he needed a logical reason. Otherwise, Qizuyan would have a reason to launch an assault on him the moment he deployed his troops. In all probability, Lei Jing did not expect himself to come for the sole reason of eliminating Haraguo, only to end up being the perfect reason for Shenzhequan to attack Dun province. But this also illustrated one thing from the side, and that was, Lei Jing had been around Duan province for so long that he had already forgotten that Zongbo was still land that was part of Great Zhou. It was brazen and dauntless of him to lead 10,000 cavalrymen deep into Dun province. He thought nothing of King Yi of Fan province and Deng province at all, and even less of Shenzhequan of Tse province. Kongling initially still had other matters to report, but then he heard the wind starting to rise outside the window. In no time at all, it started to drizzle. He hurriedly stood up and closed the windows for Shenzhequan. "This has truly been a dangerous trip for your lordship. Some words ought to have been conveyed to you by Yuan Zhou himself, but it is inconvenient for him to travel long distance, so I shall be so bold as to do it on his behalf." Shenzhequan seemed to know what Kongling was going to say. He set the letter on the blanket and looked at Kongling. Kongling took 2 steps and said, "As the saying goes, a wise man does not put himself in harm's way. For your lordship to repeatedly place yourself in dangerous situations is simply not appropriate. The development of Tse province's foundation is still in its fledgling stage, and the system for the registration of Cha province's citizens has yet to be perfected. Libei's mutual trade market has not started either. Your lordship is the head of the household. In doing this, you are hanging in the balance the loyalty of all those who stand behind you." Kongling's meaning could not be any clearer. Now that Shenzhequan was the prefectural lord, he had in his hands the lifeblood of the two prefectures of Tse province and Cha province, along with the tiger that was Libei crouching behind him. As the saying goes, embarking on a great undertaking is only the tip of the iceberg. There would be many affairs in the future where he would be the one holding the sole decision-making power. Nothing untoward must happen to him. Shenzhequan's countenance was pleasant as he bowed slightly towards Kongling. "Mr. is right to lecture me. I will sincerely reflect on it and not take any unnecessary risks again." After Kongling had taken his leave, Shenzhequan folded up the letter and put it away on the small table at the head of the bed. His right hand had been bandaged again. His 2 fingers had been bent out of shape from the pressure he inflicted on them, and when the physician set his fingers right earlier, he had sweated profusely. Even now, he was still in pain. Rain poured outside, as though it were cleansing the streets on behalf of Dun province. There were many matters that Shenzhequan had yet to attend to, but he was presently leaning back against the pillow. He had no wish to see anyone except for Xiao Qiye, but Xiao Qiye did not come in even after he waited for a little over an hour. Eventually, he ended up drifting to sleep. The next time Shenzhequan woke up, he was woken by the heat. He had already been shifted further into the bed. The sky was murky and bleak, accompanied by the urgent howls of wind and rain. He cocked his head to see Xiao Qiye sitting by the outer edge of the bed, reading a letter by the faint candlelight. The instant Chen Zequin saw Xiao Qi, he started to ache all over. He was feeling too lazy to move. Having just woken up, he clung dazedly to the pillow for a while. His foot under the blanket slid over to make light contact with Xiao Qi's calf. Xiao Qi ignored him. Shen Zequin propped himself up to look over at the letter, then explained in a hoarse voice, "It's from Yuan Zhou. I have to reply back to him later to get Gao Zhongxiang to write up a notice immediately. We have to make it clear to Qidong that Tse province deployed its troops this time to fight the Bianchi cavalry." Xiao Qi looked at him out of the corner of his eyes, then folded the letter and tossed it to the side. He said nothing. Shen Zequin took his chance to lie on Xiao Qi's arm and buried his head. "See Ian. I'll return to Tse province with you in a few days." Xiao Qi lowered his eyes to stare at Shen Zequin. "Let's see. You broke your fingers and you jumped off a building. Jigang Shifu is going to have to lash me until the horsewhip breaks." Shen Zequin said in a muted voice, "Don't." Xiao Qi fell silent for a moment. Shen Zequin nuzzled his face against Xiao Qi's arm and called out softly, "Ah yeah." Xiao Qi felt that Shen Zequin really deserved a spanking. He was determined not to fall for it this time, so he raised his other hand to grab the back of Shen Zequin's collar and lifted him over to the side. "Who's Ayet? No such person here." Shen Zequin said, "Er." Xiao Qi simply covered Shen Zequin with the blanket, then blew out the candle flame. Without even embracing him, he turned his back and lay down, still fully clothed. He still remembered that feeling when he broke into a dash. He had really gone all out then, as if his life depended on it. He would not care to look even if there had been a mountain of swords and a sea of flames before him. He was about to die from all those stabs Shen Zequin was dishing out to his heart. Shen Zequin peeled off the blanket and bumped against Xiao Qi's back all the way up to his shoulder. He stuck to Xiao Qi's temple and said, "I can't sleep if you aren't hugging me." Xiao Qi lay flat and grabbed Shen Zequin around his waist to drag him onto his body. Shen Zequin looked at him, and he looked back at Shen Zequin. However, he would not release his grip and instead secured Shen Zequin in this position so that Shen Zequin could not move. "Go ahead and sleep," Xiao Qi said. "This position is rather cramped." Shen Zequin motioned to his chest with his eyes. "It's still pounding. Isn't that nice?" Xiao Qi said with a shadow of a smile. "Mine has been pounding all this time." Shen Zequin raised his palm over Xiao Qi's chest and rubbed it. Xiao Qi lifted him up high and said, "No touching. I'm angry." Shen Zequin was like a downtrodden cat that had fallen into the water as Xiao Qi held him in his hands while he brandished his paws to scratch at Xiao Qi's chest. So light, yet so ticklish. So devilish, yet so pampered. The scratches made even Xiao Qi's teeth itch. Look at those expressive, languid eyes. He was clearly a bold one, brazenly acting as if nothing that happened was of his own doing. Xiao Qi was miffed, but those scratches wore his bad temper down into nothingness. The way Shen Zequin looked and acted now could not be found anywhere else, for it was the outcome of being much too indulged and spoiled in Xiao Qi's arms. Xiao Qi knew this very well, but he did not intend to let Shen Zequin get away with it unpunished. "Are you trying to give me a scrub?" Xiao Qi said mercilessly. "It's been 2 days since I last bathed." End chapter. Note, hour of Chen is 7 to 9 a.m.